It's time to rank the top decks from Battle of Legends Monster Mayhem. That's right, today is a TierZero tier list. Welcome back to the channel, Jesse Cotton here, and I'm excited to give you guys some more content looking at the up and ahead meta. It's a set I'm personally really excited for, so I thought it'd be a great time to share my thoughts with you about all the cards coming out. Now in this set, we have 9 themes getting some support. We have DDDs, Magistus, Punk, Dragon Maid, Jirax, Fables, Necros, Gem Knights, and Orcus. So I figured let's bring up the rear. What am I not excited for? And to me, it's an easy pick. It's DDD, with 3 new cards in the set that truthfully really suck. I'm not gonna lie, DDD is a deck that I've hated on for a long time. A lot of the cards are like neat combo pieces, but aren't actually that good. They aren't good starters or extenders, and what that means is you have a deck full of bricks and awkward hands, and that obviously is not a making for a combo deck, and that is what DDD is. So it's something that I've always strayed away from. That being said, it's not entirely terrible. There is one card that I am looking out for, and that is DD Count Surveyor. This is the only playable DD card, in my opinion, from this patch. You can discard another DD monster to summon it from your hand, and then when it's summoned, you can add a DD monster with 0 attack and 0 defense from the deck of your hand. So you can add Kepler. And this is like a Rhizal monster or a Terratop, but you have to discard a card. And that's not a bad card, but by modern standards, when every deck has a Rhizal monster or a Terratop, having a Galaxy Soldier is just a worse version of it. And good to have is a good card. I don't want to undersell it. It's just, this isn't breakaway crazy like some of the rest of the cards that we're going to see shortly. This has some other effects in the Pendulum Zone and the Monster Zone, which truthfully don't matter. At least I don't think they do, so I'm not going to go over them. The other 2 DDDs are DD Extra Surveyor and DD Scale Surveyor. These cards, when I've read them, really didn't do much, so I'm not going to give them too much attention. Let's move on. In E tier, I have nothing, because I really wanted to convey that I felt like DD was the odd man out here. It did not feel anywhere near impactful as the rest of the archetypes in here, even the ones that really weren't good. That brings us to D tier, and in D tier, I only have one single deck, but it's a deck that I still think is really cool, and it has one of the best cards I think I've ever read. It's just a shame that the rest of its surrounding archetype isn't good enough, and that is the Jirax cards. So if you've forgotten what these do, I'm going to read one of the craziest cards ever. Jirax Stego says during your main phase, you can destroy 1 card you control, and that's any card. That's important for triggering graveyard effects of a bunch of stuff, synergies like with True Draco Diagram or Metaphors monsters. But regardless, you destroy a card you control, and then if you do, you send 1 dinosaur from your deck to the graveyard. Then you can special summon Jirax monsters from your hand or deck, whose levels equal the said monster's level except Stego, ignoring their summoning conditions. That's nuts. For the rest of the turn, you are locked into dinosaurs, which that's the main reason this isn't like broken. It's right now the restrictions stop it from being insane. You can't make Laggy or Indalka. And then lastly, when it's destroyed, you can return 1 face-up card on the field to the hand. But the biggest thing here is that you can send, say, Overtext Quadless to add Pill and summon monsters equaling level 9 from the deck. That's kind of insane. So this card is great. And the other cards are also good. It's just a shame the old Jirax cards are so bad. Like actually so bad. And even with some of the best cards I've read in a long time, they're not enough yet, but they're close. Jirax Megalo is the next one, and truthfully is a huge step down from the last one, and that is it's a level 1 dinosaur tuner that if you control a dinosaur, can special itself from the hand. During the main phase, you can discard 2 cards, including a Jirax. You draw 2, whatever. If it's destroyed by a battle or card effect, you can send the Jirax from your deck or to the grave. It's a fine card. It's 3 effects. I don't want to undersell that, but compared to what Stego is, not as good. And then the field spell. It's also just a card I think is kind of mental. It is a field spell that says your main phase you can destroy dino you control, special a Jirax from your deck. Where that's crazy, and that's 2 more effects. Also, if your opponent special summons a monster and they've activated monster effects 4 or more times this turn, you can special 1 Jirax Meteor from your extra deck, and this counts as a synchro summon. You guys know what that card does? Let me show you. It pretty much says, if a synchro summon, destroy all monsters on the field. And that's kind of nuts, because that means this just, like the Nibiru, nukes the field. And it costs effectively nothing, right? Like, and with 4 effects required, it really is just Nibiru in field spell form, but it's proactive and defensive, and that's like all you can ask for in a card. That's fantastic. And then why not give it 1 more effect? This effect is the least important, but it's still good. Then if a Jirax monster you control will be destroyed by card effect, you can banish a dino from your grave instead. That's not bad. This deck has a synchro as well, which really makes it interesting. It's a level 10 synchro, Jirax Astero, which requires a tuner and a non-tuner dinosaur monster, so it's not generic. And on synchro summon, you can set a Jirax spell trap from your deck or graveyard, so you can get the field spell and Again, that's what you're looking for. Once you turn the opponent with special monster, you can banish 2 dinosaurs from your grave to negate the summon and destroy that monster. And because you can banish any dinosaur, not just Jirax, you can trigger stuff like Giant Rex and Dtier, which is kind of cool, but not huge. Furthermore, during your opponent's turn, you can banish 2 Jirax from your grave, including this card, special summon. Guess what? It counts as a synchro summon, Jirax Meteor. So yeah, you get to nuke the field again. And that's kind of nuts. Double field nuke is really nothing to scoff at, right? Because we're looking at that kind of similar effect being good in the past with Prankids, or even right now with Amano Murakamo. The effect is nuts. Those are the 4 Jirax cards, and it's a shame that the old Jirax cards are really so bad, because this had like modern support and more cards, just a bigger archetype. It'd be actually a good deck, and these are some of the best cards I've ever read. This surrounding cards aren't enough, and it's cool, but that's why DDs were so below. Every deck kind of above this, the cards on here read like they're made by custom fans, or they're custom made by fans. It's truly incredible. So with that said, let's move on to the next tier. And if you're interested in learning more about these cards, let me know which one of these themes is your favorite, and we could see them talked about more on this channel. As well as when these cards come out in Monster Mayhem very soon, you can get them with Jesse 5, TierZeroGames.com, which you'll find in the description below. In C tier, backing up the rear, we got Fabled. So Fabled is an interesting pick that has some potential. Now, if you don't remember Fabled back in the day, it was a synchro spam deck that synchroed a lot, kind of like Junk Doppel decks or Tengu Plants, but with the Fabled theme a little more. And they revolve around discard effects. So it was kind of like the synchro version of Dark World. And the way any of those decks function, if you're unfamiliar, is they rely on a huge amount of engine, and they cycle through the deck a lot. And so thus they can't play a lot of non-engine. And that is a big problem in the modern Yu-Gi-Oh era. Your engine needs to be so absurdly powerful in order to do that it's not super feasible. And Fabled, the support is, again, really good, but it's just that playstyle doesn't work in modern Yu-Gi-Oh. So these cards will sound fantastic to you guys, and they are, as well as the deck plays Light Fiends for Fiendsmiths, but it's not enough, I think, to really set it all the way over the top and be a tier 1 deck. First up is the Continuous spell, which I think is kind of nuts. Let's be real, most of these cards I'm about to read to you guys are pretty nuts. When it's activated, you can set 1 Fabled spell trap from your deck. Now, what you're looking for here is your field spell. The Fabled monsters released a couple years ago, and I believe Blazing Vortex, are actually pretty solid, and it's something I've considered in the past as a small mini engine to just generate some bodies. Yeah, those cards are still solid by today's metrics, and this card gets you the field spell, but that's all it does. It also says your opponent cannot use cards or effects in response to your synchro summons. That's obviously good for like magical meltdown effects to protect from Ash Blossom, Infinite Impermanence, Effect Failure. I mean, that should be obvious. And then furthermore, this has another ability, which once per turn you can discard a Fabled card. Remember, this deck wants to discard cards to either draw or special Fabled from your grave or banishment. The fact that you can cycle to draw means it also just unbricks you if you needed to. It kind of just does whatever you need. This card is truly incredible. This deck is going to be all extenders, by the way, but that brings us to the other problem with these type of decks, and that is the Charmies and Droll. They've plagued modern Yu-Gi-Oh, and they kind of force you to go with this measured approach or to have good backup plans for when you're comboing. This deck isn't going to have that, even though it is pretty cool. Their main deck monster, though, Fabled Behemoth, it's a really cool one. The artwork on this is very relatable, you know. It's kind of, you know, you wake up all confused middle of the night and start stumbling around. That's me, that's him, that's us. Let's be real. And yeah, this card is pretty cool. So once in the hand, you get to discard 2 more Fableds, including this card. Special summon a Fabled Synchro from your extra deck with the levels combined. This is treated as Synchro Summon. Now, importantly, it's not a cost to do this, which means you aren't going to be losing out a ton of cards to Caesar, Appaloosa, and any types of negates. The negate, it stays in your hand. If negates and destroys, you only lose 1 card. And that is pretty meaningful. Also, on top of that, while it's in the graveyard and you summon a Fabled monster, you can banish from the grave to summon a Fabled from the hand. So it can act as another extender there. Level 2 Beast Tuner. That's a good card. The cards that have these multifaceted effects, that's strong. One card that kind of gets me going, what the hell did I just read, is the level 4 Synchro, Fabled Damagen, which is a Light Fiend level 4 Synchro tuner, which is just, oh my god, that is perfect in so many ways. Which says your opponent cannot target other Fabled Synchros you control with card effects. Also, this card is Synchro Summon, you can special 1 Fabled from your hand or deck. Who doesn't love that? That's broken. Also, because it doesn't have enough, if it's sent to the graveyard, you can draw cards, deal the number of Fabled Synchros you control, then discard 1 card. Truly one of the best cards I've read in a while. Like, it's actually a miracle a lot of these archetypes aren't tier 1 in Japan. It shows the state of modern Yu-Gi-Oh and how powerful decks are, but I like that Konami Return gives power boosts to these old decks to keep up at a local and regional level at least, because I don't want to just throw them aside, and these cards are sick. And of course, there's still one more card for Fabled, so it's not like we're done there. And this card is good. It's not broken, but it's good. Fabled Swarm Leversable. A level 10 synchro that is generic, which is important because this could be a Baron placement in the future. It says during the main phase, quick effect, so either player's turn, you can tribute a number of Fabled monsters. This includes itself if you wanted to, and then take control of how many monsters your opponent controls. Effects are negated, but this is also a permanent steal, so that is very cool. Link away with it. You can activate the effect if you need to. We'll see if that matters, but yeah. And then if this card is in your graveyard, you can target one of your other Fables in the grave, bounce this card back to your extra decks, reuse it, and you get the other card back to your hand. The level recycling is very good in a deck that spams synchros a lot, where if you are forced to a grind game, you can burn out of resources. This card is good, and it's generic. It's a card to look out for, even if you're not going to play Fabled and something to pick up, you can put it in essentially any deck. So while this isn't a standout, holy shit, this is broken, like some other cards I've read, it's still a card you must keep an eye out for because it is good. And again, of course, Life Fiend. That brings us to the next deck in the C tier and the last deck in C tier, and that is a fan favorite from 2015, and one that honestly I am not the biggest fan of, and I played it for a bit. I was a BA fan. It is Necro. So Necro is a weird one. Some of the support cards you'll read here are truly insane. Again, like truly, I don't know what happened, but then you think about it and you're like, is this deck really good? So the problem with Necro is, for one, Joel Lockbird is just still the most criminal card in the world for this deck, as well as any ritual deck, the combination of two almost separate engines, even though they're not separate, it's all Necros cards, of spells and monsters, means brickiness is bound to happen, and you're forced to play a higher engine count as a result. So just like with Fabled, you end up in a sort of bad situation in the modern metagame. Necro's Unicorn is still a good floodgate though, and other strong cards do exist in the Necro's deck, so it's not completely without merit. It's just not anything brilliant. And just like the last one, there are 4 cards to go over. Necro's Divine Mirror, which during the main phase, ritual summons a Necro's ritual from your hand or banishment, attributing monsters from your hand or field, or sending Necro's monsters from your extra deck to the graveyard. So it's a sort of revival guy, but yeah, it's like Cycle, but a little bit better. And you can send from your extra deck to the grave, which not like Arclights, but you're sending the Pendulum monsters, which exist for some reason in Necros. Then you can banish it in the graveyard with a Necros monster to add a Necros spell. It's the same as the others. So it's good cycling. Not super important, not super impressive. The ritual monster in here, Metaltron, honestly, again, not as impressive, and that's why it doesn't push higher on the list. I think Konami is a little more careful with making Necros meta again. Its Pend effect is kind of weird. It's if Necros card is banished face up, you can target spell trap on the field and banish it. I mean, like, it's probably a good utility, but that's not why you play it. Big reason here is that you can ritual summon it without using level 9. It's the same as like Trishula or whatever. And then during the main phase, you can target face the monster your opponent controls to banish it, and then banish this card till the end phase. So it's kind of like SP, but their card is permanently banished, yours is not. And this is huge because obviously SP is a good disruption, but theirs doesn't reset and yours does. And it means you can also just dodge their effects very easily. And if you're able to establish a grind game, this is sort of insane. It's just, however, how often do grind games happen in modern Yu-Gi-Oh, especially in a deck that doesn't have a lot of non-engine. That's kind of my biggest concern with this. Otherwise, it can still be used as a good disruption. Furthermore, any of your Necros monsters, if they destroy a guy by battle, they get banished, but whatever. No, the next 2 cards is where I think things get better. The 2 main deck Necros monsters, Amelia and Avance. Amelia, I'm actually not sure which one is better, but they're both nuts. So Amelia counts for the whole ritual summon, whatever. Furthermore, if you have a warrior Necros on your field or grave, you can special it from your hand. Cool. Then on summon, you can add a Necros ritual monster or ritual spell from your hand. That's pretty sick. And what this means is, like, even in generic decks, you can go like play 3 Brionacs and one of this, and then you go Brionic, add this, special this, add back a Brio, or add Brio from deck to your hand, I mean. What it means is it turns Brio into summon at level 4 spellcaster water, which sometimes his typings matter. Should Bahamut Shark had still been legal, that would have mattered. And then also you get the Brionic to hand, not for next turn because you're only playing one Amelia, or I mean you could choose to play more, but you can then discard it later. If you choose to play 2 Amelias and you open Amelia by chance instead, you go Amelia, add Brio, ditch Brio, add Amelia. Now you can special the Amelia, 1 card rank 4. And the fact that you can sort of turn these things into 1 card rank 4 engines, that didn't exist until recently. Raizo kind of reshaped the mold and now there's a lot of them coming out, but to me that always stands out as something to keep an eye out for if the right typings exist for me to play in a future deck. But keeping on from that, we've also got Advance. So Advance on normal summon specials and Necros monsters from your deck. That could just be the Amelia, which is kind of crazy. It also counts for the entire ritual summon, which is cool. And then furthermore, if it's tributed, you can target any number of banished Necros cards, any number, all of them, with different names, and add them to your hand. That reads kind of crazy, right? Now, here's the actual problem with that. Even if you can get like 4 or 5 cards with cards like a Red Bear to fill your grave and cycle stuff, the pluses end up only being like +3 or 4, but then at the end of the day, you have to pass and wait for next turn. And modern Yu-Gi-Oh, that doesn't exactly keep up. So while these cards read really strong, I'm not sure they're exactly enough to keep up in the modern metagame. So these are something to keep out for, and Unicorn is still a truly fantastic card, but I'm doubtful if this will be a meta breaker in the moment. And that brings us up to B tier. The B tier decks were starting to get better, and they have some potential where I think we should keep an eye out for the meta. And first up is the Gem Knights, one that I've heard a lot of hype around. And myself, all of the cards read kind of nuts, but at the same time, I have my concerns with them. So the card I want to read first is the fusion spell, Gem Knight Dispersion. And it's a fusion spell and a search spell. You can use one of each effect, but you can only use each one once per turn. So you can use both effects in the same turn, that means. The first one is fusion summon a Gem Knight from your extra deck. But if you have a Gem Knight fusion in your graveyard, you have to fuse two from your deck or extra deck as part of the fusion requirements. That's crazy because a lot of Gem Knights have graveyard effects. And it's not hard to put a Gem Knight fusion in grave, as you can search it via many methods. And then the other alternative effect is to add a Gem Knight monster, or sorry, a gem monster in deck or banishment to your hand. Now, a lot of the gem cards do half damage done to your opponent this turn or during the main phase. The reason for that is fairly simple. The gem FTKs existed and they do not want FTKs to be rampant. I think this is a very smart move on Konami's behalf, but it still means this deck lacks a little bit of an end board, and that's kind of the premise I'm getting at. The next card is Gem Knight Hollow Core, so a revamp of the Shaddoll cards, I'm pretty sure, surprisingly. And this card is kind of like your Mathematic Circular of the deck, where you can send the Gem Knight normal or a Gem Knight fusion from your deck to the grave and summons itself, which is fantastic. But as well as when it's in the graveyard and you control a Gem Knight fusion monster, you can banish itself along with two Gem Knight cards to negate an opponent's effects. You dump it in grave, it sets up your Gem Knight fusion. It's a fusion material, it's a link material, because Gem Knight Quartz, the link 2, is a very good card. Cannot be forgotten either. You get a negate on top of that, and that is obviously a very good card. So kind of nuts, and it really just does not end there. Gem Knight Nepirim, which is another Shaddoll retrain, looks like Construct. It's also just crazy, which on summon add a Gem Knight card from your deck to your hand. Stratos. Oh, but wait, also you can normal summon one Gem Knight from your hand. Cool. I like extra normal summons. Oh, but then also, if it's sent from the hand or deck to the graveyard, you can send one card from your hand to the grave and special summon this card. So it revives itself, then searches, and then extra normals. What the hell? Those are three really good effects. The last card, the Fusion Monster, truly leaves me wanting more, even though it's not actually bad. It requires 3 gems, Gem Knight Master Diamond Dispersion. During the main phase, quick effect, you can send it to the grave to summon up to 3 non-rock gems from different names. Extra deck or graveyard. Or sorry, extra deck or graveyard. What I've seen people really do is just summon a bunch of monsters that don't do anything on the opponent's turn. And when you're building a deck, you're thinking of disruptions, it's just not enough. It also locks you afterwards into fusions. And this is the biggest problem, because you can't just summon 3 like level 8s or whatever and go into Harbinger. It's just sat there. And then when a Gem Knight fusion is destroyed, it can come back. This card reads good, but it's not actually that good because you don't have good targets for it. If someone could show me a cool Gem Knight board that is not weak to random choke points, but also resilient and doesn't require a bunch of bricks, then I'd be eager to test it out. But the actual gem cards themselves seem to lack actual end board, and that is the biggest concern for me, because I feel like you could otherwise get this deck down to a lean count, playing on engine, inconsistent, have extension, and that would make sense. But going first seems like it's not all there just yet. And that brings us to the next deck in B tier, and it's the first deck from our quarter century box. See, when these decks were released in Japan, they were split up into 2 separate releases. We had the premium pack boxes, which are the dual terminal cards, and quarter century boxes, which was the other 3 archetypes. And this one is Dragon Maid. So these ones only got 2 cards to work with, but the cards are very good. But the first up is Dragon Maid Stern. Now, this card is not going to blow you away, but it's fine. Dragon Fusions you control cannot be shown by card effects, whatever. You can discard it to special a Dragon Maid from your graveyard or banishment. And in the battle phase, you can return to the hand to special summon a Dragon Maid from the grave. Sorry, from your hand, not your grave. But yeah, I mean, it's like good. You tag out into it, it cycles back cards, which is pretty good. Revives things, it's fine to discard. It's good, but the big dragons were never the real focal point to this deck. And while yes, this is a better big dragon than ones that exist, it's not, this card's not game breaking like the other cards that we've read are. The card in this archetype that really kind of mind blows you is the Fusion Monster. That is Lady's Dragon Maid. So this is the 3rd Dragon Maid fusion now. So we have House and Show. Now we have Lady. It requires 2 Dragon Maids with the same attribute but different levels, so pretty much the big dragon and the baby dragon. You banish the above materials from your field and grave, 1 each. So it's like not the easiest summon, not the hardest. I mean, it's not hard to summon, but it's not completely free like say Phantom Yubel. That being said, it's not hard to go Kitchen Dragon Maid or Parlor Dragon Maid to set them up. This card is special summon. You can special summon 1 level 4 or lower Dragon Maid from your deck. So now when you started a Kitchen or Parlor, you get Chamber. If you open up Chamber, you can still go Chamber and strike a dragon, then the Hospitality Revive and set it up. But regardless, the point is you can set this up fairly easily, get whatever one you need to, and then go into Dragon Link plays or Hermetic Seal and just play Control, which is very solid. But then it doesn't end there, because during the standby phase, and that is either players, you can fusion summon a dragon from your extra deck by shuffling materials from the field or banishment into the deck. So yeah, that's real. You're not banishing, you're not shuffling from the field, you're shuffling from the banishment. So essentially the 2 materials you threw away before, you now cycle back into the show warehouse. That's crazy. And because that's just every standby phase, now you have a 3,000 defense threat on the field that you don't want to kill. Otherwise, it just happens again. This card is kind of insane. That being said, I'm curious to see if this really breaks past the meta. I don't know if it's enough for Dragon Maid, because the other card is just okay, but this card is a great step up for them and gives them better extension, better end pieces, better follow through. It gives them pretty much a better everything. And that wraps up the B tier. Now we move on to the A tier decks. Now I'm going to start with the next deck in the quarter century box, Punks. So Punks is one I kind of debated whether they belonged in the A tier or S tier, truthfully, because the 2 cards they got are 2 freaking phenomenal cards, both of them absolutely insane. And after getting a chance to play with them in Master Duel, I was thoroughly impressed. However, the problem with Punks is it's kind of fading less and less away from being an engine. Now you want to play it more as a solo deck. Or if you're playing as an engine, it's a large engine. It's not just a 5-card package. You're trying to fit in 8 to 10 cards, which is fine in some strategies, but it's not going to be the same splashableness that it was 2 or 3 years ago. Still, it is very solid. Fu is a bit of a problem. Ash still kind of sucks, but you have some power. Now, let me just tell you what I'm talking about. I'm going to start off with the effect monster first. So this means it can be searched off of your Xiamen. Rising Scale, level 8. So unfortunately, you cannot use Ogre Dance to get this, but you can summon it by banishing one other punk from your hand to graveyard, and then on summon, pay 6 life points to take a punk from your deck, except level 8, add it to hand, or summon it. That's just nuts. And then there's one last effect for an extra bonus, which is not bad either if your opponent's not paying attention. And that is when your opponent uses a monster effect with 2,500 or more attack, you can change it to face down defense. And that's not hugely important, but it does matter for some things. Randomly, the one interaction this does matter a lot is versus Desiree, because this doesn't target. If they use Desiree, you chain it goes face down, it loses the equip spells, and therefore it ends up not getting anything. So summoning a Rising Scale into a Desiree just turns it off and extends. That's nuts. And what you're extending into is the new XYZ. I wonder what the hell? Punk is fusion and synchro. What the hell's an XYZ doing in there? Read this. 2 level 8s, but a lot of the time you don't summon it that way. You can also exceed summon it using a Punk, fusion, or synchro material. Just one of them. Slap on top. And then it has 2 effects. So one of them I don't use all that much, to be honest. It's 600 light points to detach and draw a card, which is not bad, especially with the field spell you're drawing 2. But more importantly, when another monster effect is activated and you have a level 3 psychic in your grave, which Xiamen, you get to detach material to negate and destroy it. So it's just nib insulation. And this is why, like, if you want to go back to playing this as an engine, you just have nib prevention now, which is kind of nuts, and you can do more past it. So you got nib prevention plus other extenders to maneuver into, which is just so good. This deck is very interesting to me. It's both an engine and a solo deck. I've played it in a Master Duel, the Fiends with the cards, and I've seen some people play Pure. A lot of potential. I just wonder if it'll be really tier 1 in Master Duel or in TCG. I think it's close, but it's not quite there. I think it might have a couple places though, in some top cuts. It'll for sure top regionals. It's a good deck. Do not sleep on it. And that brings us to the last pack from the dual terminal section. Although actually, this isn't even a dual terminal one, but it's part of the premium pack in OCG, and this is one that I think has been kind of slept on, even though it's not really slept on, and it's also kind of technically not confirmed, so we'll see if this ends up happening. But that is Magistus. So Magistus got a bunch of new cards, but 2 of the cards didn't come with the rest of them. They come separately as book promos in Japan, so we aren't 100% sure if they're going to be imported alongside them into the TCG. One of them, the Omega Invoked thing, I don't think is that important, but the card I'm about to read you now, Spoon, the Seal of the Magistus, this card is. This whole brand of Magistus cards come together to, one, create an actual playable deck now, but also really strong engine. So I'm going to read the new Magistus cards to you and then fill you in what the old Magistus cards do kind of briefly as well, because they're not that well known. So Spoon says you can discard it to use one of the following effects, and it's always going to be the first effect, truthfully. Add a Magistus from your deck to your hand, except Spoon. Unless you have the attack face the monster and control the other effect. That's whatever. You're not really doing that, but it's nice to have and nice to know. You mentioned the graveyard, the target face the monster you control is to equip it with Magistus from your extra deck or your graveyard. So I'm going to fill you in on what Artemis does. So Artemis, the link 1 in this deck, it's any spellcaster, so other decks can play it too. But when it's equipped as an equip spell, which this deck does to itself fairly often, you want to turn add a Magistus from your hand. So this is essentially a double search, which is the hell, like, do you not like double rotas? Obviously very good. And it has more utility than that, truthfully. And it's also not weak to Ash in the same way, but this card is brilliant. The next card, the Crowley, the Gifted of Magistus, is the Alistair Retrain for Magistus, which is super cool because the lore is finally tied together. If this card is used as fusion material, its name can be treated as Alistair. So really, it's just Alistair. And that means you can make cards like Mechaba in any deck that plays these cards, and it's not just restricted to Magistus. Now, the reason to play it is if it's added to your hand, except by drawing it, you can summon itself. So it's Poplar. Now, beyond anything else, this is level 4 access, right? So again, just like the the package of Brionac, add Amelia to summon level 4 on the field. You can do the same thing with Spoon, get Crowley. Crowley then on summon lets you fusion summon from Magistus or an evoked monster using cards from your hand or field. So you can make cards like Makaba. The idea here is you can discard to search this, special summon it, and then equip your Artemis and search again. But there's actually more than that, because there's also a Magistus Zeroa from a while ago that was kind of teetering on the edge of playable for a while and didn't see enough play because the rest of the Magistus cards kind of sucked. What Zeroa does is once per turn you can equip a Magistus to a monster you control, so Artemis obviously, but then furthermore, when it's equipped you can special summon a Magistus from your hand or grave, or a spellcaster, so not just a Magistus, but usually it is. And because the way this cycles, you can go say Spoon, grab Zeroa, summon Zeroa, and then equip the Artemis, effect to revive the Spoon, and then search Crowley, summon Crowley, and that's 3 level 4s just like that. So it actually extends pretty well. And in truth, that's not even the entire combo, right? Because you also have the ability to fuse off Crowley and you have the ability to do other stuff. Furthermore, again, you could just go Spoon, get Crowley, special Crowley, and if your deck is playing a deck with the right attributes for invoked, like you're saying, playing a light deck, like a combo Blue Eyes, I could special the Crowley and then fuse with a light and summon Makaba. So if my deck now needs to have an answer to monster effects, and it's a light deck, Spoon plus any other light monster makes Makaba. Now, the next question is, all right, that's maybe a bit bad because I have to discard a card to negate a monster effect. Well, no, because you go Spoon effect engrave to equip to it the Artemis. Then the Artemis gets to search another Spoon, and this Spoon won't do anything, right? Because the ideal ratio there is 3 Spoon and 1 Crowley. You're grabbing another Spoon, and now that Spoon is in effect for your Makaba. So your Makaba's first activation will be free, and that is very meaningful. So while this may not have immediate applications at the moment, anytime there's a light combo deck with graveyard effects that kind of synergize well, this is very ideal. And it has other applications beyond just summon fuse. It could be just level 4. That I think is entirely worth looking into as engines in future decks. You can either go that small fusion engine, or a bigger rank 4 engine, or lean more and more into the Magistus cards because they have more potential. And going on with that, we got the fusion monster, and that is Zeroa the Magistus Victorious Verithragna. We got it. So requires a Magistus plus an extra deck monster, pretty much. Fusion, Synchronicity, or Link. To target an effect monster your opponent controls or in your graveyard and equip it. It requires a Magistus plus an extra deck monster. So when you're fusion summoning this, you can use like an Artemis on your main monster zone, which you can summon super easily, as well as your Crowley, and then bam, it comes down. And what it does is once per turn, you can use each of the following effects, and that is you can target an effect monster your opponent controls or one in your graveyard and equip it. So it's removal, or you can equip from your grave to trigger a Magistus effect. But it's more than that, because when a monster effect is activated, you can send a face-up Magistus monster you control to the grave, and this counts as the equip spells as well. It's like Regulus. You can send monster cards, and then after you negate, you destroy a card your opponent controls. So you don't have to destroy a card you negate, which is good against hand traps. Very powerful card. It's just Regulus that is, again, really easy to summon. There are a couple other Magistus cards in here that I'm not going to go over because they really aren't as important unless you're playing a pure deck, and I don't want to ramble about Magistus for like an hour, but these cards to me are incredibly interesting. Spoon is the one that we're not sure if we get, and without Spoon, this entire thing kind of falls apart. We've seen people play this engine though in decks like Dracotail coming out in a couple months here, and I think even if not in that deck, the capabilities of this package as an engine or by itself in differing degrees and forms is super intriguing to me and something I'm excited to play around with, and I urge you guys to do the same. So keep your eye out for that. And if there's anything from this video you're looking to pick up, these are the cards. Again, Jesse 5, code below, TierZero, get your Magistus cards. That brings us to the last rank in the tier, the S tier, the Orcus cards. Their brief stint in the OCG seem to have ended pretty quick, and it's curious as to say why. I'm eager to figure it out. But the Orcus cards are very strong, or particularly the Link 1 is insane, and they have an okay Link 4. Now, the reason why Orcus is super interesting here is that this deck can be built in a way that it's not too weak to draw. It can play a low to the ground, a lot of hand traps, and in high combo power formats, which you can argue in right now, that type of effect is very good. The biggest kind of scare I'm always going to have with this deck into a matchup like Malice is Whitebinder, but still, this deck can cope with a Banish Pile because obviously Orcus Babel in tandem with your Link 2 Galatea and Link 3 will make it work. Now, that being said, let's get into what the actual cards do. The Link 1, Galatea I, is not going to read broken, but keep in mind it is a Link 1, which always means it's going to be way better than you think it is. So you only link it once per turn, and it cannot be used as material for Exceed Summon. So you can still link it away, but you can't make Dingers too often to be a little too crazy, I guess. And then you can send one card in your hand to the grave to add a World Legacy monster or an Orchestrated Babel from your deck or graveyard to your your hand. So oftentimes you'll go into World Legacy combos to extend your combo. So if you need an extra body, for example, you can get the World Legacy World Crown, summon it, and then link from there. But Babel is also still a good add, and we'll see what the standard lines end up being once this deck actually drops. It doesn't end there though. If it's in your graveyard, you can banish one of your other Orcus monsters to summon it from the grave, which is nuts. For one, that means banishing link monsters, so you can bring them back off of World Wand, which is nice. And then obviously, just like all your other monsters, it's just a card that comes back. And of course, thanks to Babel, you can use it during your opponent's turn as well. So you can keep summoning it, and like Lacrima with Requiem, it summons a monster back. Now, unlike Lacrima and Requiem, this doesn't sack special from the deck, but it still is good IP fodder, which is great, or good fodder for Topological Bomber Dragon, a card we're already watching see play in the metagame, so you can definitely see play it in Orcus. But to me, the biggest ideal behind this deck is Droll. I think Droll has been kind of the bane of my existence for the last little bit now. It seems like one of the best cards in the game, and as I'm looking for a deck to play, I want a deck that can hold its own in every regard, play non-engine, and doesn't just instantly fold to these hand traps like Droll or Fua. And it remains to be seen how true this is for Orcus, but I think comparing this to a lot of the other decks, it can do a better job at that than the others. So it is probably the deck I'm most looking forward to try from the meta perspective. That being said, I'm excited for a lot of these decks to explore in engine capacity and solo capacity and at locals and all the bunch. And again, if there's anything you guys want to see me play, then all you gotta do is let me know in the comments below and we can figure that out. But with that said, until next time. Peace.